Hey guys, welcome back. So we're just going to jump right into it. As you see, I have my pins already lined up so that I can sew over them to take in the shoulder. Like I said in the last video, there was no seam allowance needed because it was taken up as is when we had to take in the shoulder part. But typically when you're making a shirt, or making a top, you would want to add about an inch or so of seam allowance. And then after I finished sewing, I went in with my pinking shears to finish off the shoulder. Now what I'm going to do is add the sleeve from the white shirt onto the sleeve of the kimono top, which was a little bit difficult because in the armpit area there's a wide gap that I had to kind of like construct into being a normal sleeve so that my sleeve could work. I say difficult, it wasn't that difficult, but I did have to deal with that challenge so that I could basically wear it as a shirt. As you'll see, I do have to sew it up, and I also had to basically do a couple of slits so that it can become an armhole. But either way, I did overcome it. Now there is no particular way of putting the pins in, but you do want to make sure that when you're putting your sewing pins in, that you put it in so that the entire piece or both pieces are flat, so that they don't bunch up when you sew them. As you saw, I did do a little bit of clips just so that it can fit all the way around the sleeve hole. All right, and now once I'm done with that, I'm going to do a quick inspection just to make sure that everything is nice and flat or where it needs to be. And then I will go in and sew the first sleeve of the top. Right here, I'm just making sure, like I said, to make sure that everything is nice and flat so that when I go and sew it, there won't be anything bunched up. And I also want to make sure that I have a little bit of a seam allowance. So I did put about, I think, half an inch of a seam allowance on the sleeve for both sleeves, just so that it can line up with the seam allowance that is already on the kimono, which was about, I'm sorry, the kimono top, which was about a half an inch as well. So just to make sure that everything is nice and even. I know I said this a couple of videos ago that I probably won't do tutorials or voiceovers like I said I wanted to do. So I don't really know how or what came over me when I said that I was going to do this one, but I just decided to do it. I think this time this will be my last voiceover or tutorial, just because I realized that I'm probably not good at explaining things, and I'll probably just do not kind of walkthroughs, basically what I'm going to do for this particular thing. I feel as though that would just be easier. It's better for me to just do it than explain it. But yeah, I am finishing up the sleeve here, and then once I finish up the sleeve, I will show you guys, because I really like the way that it turned out, because it turned out pretty cute. Anyways, this is the sleeve, and I love how kind of like spring-ish it looks. It really went with the idea that I was going for. with the whole overall or jacket type of aesthetic that I was looking for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the kimono top and sleeves and put it over the old white top. And before I was kind of pondering if I should just keep it like this because I thought it looked pretty cool. But I was like, it wouldn't make sense either way. But yes, what I'm going to do is attach the bottom buttons together, and I will add or use my chalk to basically do an outline of how the white shirt will be sewn onto the blue shirt. Now, if you are following this, if you are doing two like shirts together, you kind of want to add a little bit of seam allowance to this just to make sure that when you sew it, everything won't be nothing will be tight basically. And you want to make sure that when you take the shirt on, put the shirt on, take the shirt off, it doesn't rip or anything like that. So yeah, so I basically just took the chalk and outlined where I want basically the general area of where I want the white shirt to be. And then I added about maybe a quarter of a seam allowance to it, just to give it a little bit of grace because it already has the measurements that it needs. But to give me a little grace when sewing, I added about a quarter inch of seam allowance to sew it on. So I thought that you would be able to see it. At least I thought I could see it. But basically, you're going to take your chalk and go over as well as add the seam allowance on to your shirt. After that, you're going to take your scissors. I used pinking shears and cut it out. For this one, I could have, just folded it over and cut, do one big half cut, but I decided to make like the full big cut. I don't know, it was at the first thought it was easier, but I should have done like folded in half and did a half cut because I had to go back and redo it anyways because one side was bigger than the other. And you can probably see it here, how one side is bigger than the other, and I did not notice it at that time. But now, what you are going to do, or what I am going to do, is take the kimono top and sleeves, as well as the shirt piece that I just cut out, and I will sew both of them, or sorry, not sew, pin both of them together. Now, I did say before that a sewing mat or a measurement mat is very preferable when you are sewing. However, I do not have that. But a flat surface can suffice as well. I think at the time I was using the floor, or I believe it was on my yoga mat that I was using it. But either way, you're going to use a flat surface, and what you are going to do is pin you are going to pin, but make sure it's on the right side. As you'll see, I have to put it inside out so that when I pin it and go and sew, I can just sew. I don't have to worry about reversing it or anything like that. But yes, for the pins, especially this one, you want to, especially if you have curved corners, make sure you pin the curved corners first and then the top corners, because the curved corners, in my opinion, are the most difficult Um, just because I could miss the curve, or the curve would be if I when I sew it, it would look a little weird. But make sure you pin it to where you want it to be exactly, and then do the rest of the pin so that it can be all evened out. Now, another thing that I want to bring up, because you guys probably saw it a lot of times, make sure that your fabric and work is ironed out or steamed out. That, especially if you're making something from scratch, that is very important, so that the measurements can be as accurate as possible and just so that it can look clean. Of course, it's going to be all bunched up as you're sewing, but it is preferable that you keep the your fabric or your costumes or your clothes straightened and cleaned, just so that you can get the best effect and quality when you are sewing. Okay, so now that the pins are done, you're going to take your shirt, and you can flip it inside out just to see how it would look. But you can basically just take your shirt and sew it as is. I did want to make it outside, inside the correct way, just to see what it would look like. And I also noticed how I have the pieces of the shirt from the shoulder hanging out, but I will fix that later. So this is what it looks like. And then this is what it looks like on. I noticed on the left side, I had some extra fabric or extra white of the shirt hanging out, and I didn't really want that, so I went back in and redid it. I'm also fooling with the shoulder pieces, because I realized that I can just sew it to the back piece of the kimono, which I'll show you here. And this is kind of like a basic hem that I learned to do before costuming and things like that, which is a double hem. So you'll fold it once and then you'll fold it over again, and it will be kind of like a clean hem, compared to the strings all over the place. But basically, I hemmed the back of the shirt, and I hemmed the bottom of the shirt. And after I finished doing the hem, I took the shoulder pieces that I was playing around with, and I sewed the shoulder pieces onto the back part so that it can make it seem as though, of course, it's like a two-in-one shirt, but in reality, it's just one shirt, if that makes sense. All right, and here's the outcome of the shirt, which I do like very much. I will have to do some more. I have to do some steaming and ironing on it. I also want to dress it up a little bit more before I wear it out. But this is the final result. And I hope you guys stay tuned for more videos because I do actually have them on the way. And I am actually trying to do 2 videos per month. But doing this and working is hard. Anyways, I will see you guys later. Bye bye.